Do you know what is the number one thing that keeps most people poor? No, it's not something drastic like the recession. The number one thing that keeps most people poor is lifestyle creep. Lifestyle creep is also known as lifestyle inflation, and it occurs as an individual gets more disposable income. So as they continue to improve their standard of living, the things that were previously considered as luxuries become the new necessities. It's the proverbial saying that if you put a frog into a pot of boiling water, it will jump out straight away. However, if you put it into a pot of cold water and slowly raise the temperature, the frog gets accustomed to the rise in temperature until it's eventually cooked. Lifestyle creep can pretty much happen on anything from the food that we eat, the clothes that we wear, the cars that we drive, houses that we choose to live in, and the vacations that we take. And the worst part of it is that it has a tendency to creep up on us without us noticing, and very soon you could easily end up relying on credit cards for your purchases to maintain your now more extravagant lifestyle. Let's take Steve as an example. So Steve has just started university or college, and he has a student loan and lives in a crappy student flat, and he buses or cycles to school to save on transportation costs. And he basically has pizza and instant noodles to save on food costs. And he doesn't have much income, and he spends pretty much everything just to get by. So after graduating, he gets an entry-level job that pays him minimum wage. He decides to move to a bigger house because he doesn't want to live with 5 flatmates anymore. And he decided to get a new car on finance because he can afford it now. And he wants to get the latest phone with the best camera so he can take good pictures for social media. And he also goes out to fancy restaurants with his new colleagues every week. By the end of the week, he still ends up with no money left. Overall, his lifestyle hasn't really improved that much, apart from living in a bigger place, going out to eat a little bit more often, and having a car. But his expenses has vastly increased. It's always very tempting to spend that money once you get a pay increase or a bonus just because you can. And there always seems to be a never-ending supply of fun items that you can get. It's like new gadgets, toys, clothes, furniture, cars, and the list just goes on and on. Now, I'm not advocating on becoming a complete stooge and never spending anything on yourself. The idea is to become more strategic in your spending so that you won't regret it later on. So how do we prevent lifestyle creep from taking over? The number one thing is to have a budget. Now, I know having a budget sounds very, very boring, but having a basic budget can have a huge effect on preventing being overrun by lifestyle creep. I have a video on one of the most basic budgeting system known as the 50-30-20 budget. So be sure to check that out if you haven't already. Number 2 is to forget about keeping up with the Joneses. So one of the most common mistakes that a lot of people make is to try keep up with the Joneses. And what I mean by that is people essentially try to match whatever the people around you are spending on. Maybe you see your neighbor or your best friend get a fancy new car, and you feel pressure to get a new car as well, just so that you feel like you can fit in. But in reality, most people are too concerned with looking good themselves to be paying any attention to you. Number 3 is related to number 2, and it is to hang out with like-minded people. Here's a common saying that you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most amount of time with. Now, if all your friends are basically blowing through their paycheck by going out constantly and buying lots of luxury items, it'll become incredibly difficult for you to not do the same. So try spend more time with like-minded people that also share your values. Number 4 is to focus on creating experiences rather than simply purchasing more products. Research has shown that experiences bring more happiness than physical goods in the long term. Instead of buying a new TV or a computer, go for a trip somewhere with your friends or loved ones. Places that we go to and experiences that we share tend to be more memorable and bring people more joy in the long term. Number 5 is to upgrade things gradually. A common mistake when getting a brand new paycheck is to replace all your previous stingy lifestyle in one go. You want to focus on the things that matter to you the most and replace those things first. And number 6 is to start a side hustle. Start a side hustle to supplement your primary income, whether it be tutoring, babysitting, or an online business. And put the money from your side hustle into a savings or investment account so that you won't be tempted to spend it all straight away. Lifestyle creep or lifestyle inflation can and most likely will happen to everyone. But with some planning, you can absolutely avoid it from taking over your life.